Sincere greetings to the dear citizens of the Republic of the Gambia and to all the citizens within the respective states of the ECOWAS community and beyond. This is your brother, Essa Bokar Sey, a son of the Gambia. Well, today we are here charged with the responsibility of speaking on patriotism and nationalism, being two lanes at which we roll on. And they are definitely being interpreted or have always been interpreted by the psyche of society. Unfortunately, sometimes wrongfully, but the greater part of it, at least one can say, is acceptable. Well, simplifying it is always better for those who have been hearing these words from my own perspective, because I don't dominate perspectives and I don't dominate opinions, like the English would say. We are all entitled to our opinions, but nobody is entitled to their own facts. Facts are stubborn and nobody can control them. Okay? So when we talk about patriotism, within the perspective of politics, most of us do attempt to hijack the word for the benefit of a few, in most cases for the benefit of one. We have heard regimes in the world where despots and tyrants chose to hijack patriotism, which they would always identify with themselves and their cronies, and they disqualify others who differ or who beg to differ from them in terms of approach, in terms of modus operandi, and in other ways that they perform. That is a case study we should diagnose with honesty, sincerity, and impartiality if we are to be truly qualified as what some call intellectuals. I wouldn't call myself an intellectual, though, because being an intellectual is not determined by the tape line of academia. It is not determined by how many degrees you have. There is more to that. It's a combination of intelligence, awareness, sincerity, honesty, and above all, to rise above self, to serve humanity. That is what I would call an intellectual. Thought-provoking, speeches which are geared toward nothing other than the enhancement of lives. That is what I will call an intellectual. But when you come to patriotism also, the subjective nature of the interpretation that stems from the mindset of some political cliches throughout the world makes patriotism a victim and a captive of blinded desires. Indeed, why the French philosopher said, pure thought doesn't have desire in it. Any thought with desires is not a pure thought. You cannot be desirous and think of having pure thought in your mind. No, your thought is not pure. It is impure. Desires, on either way, if it is for the good or the bad, the moment they are extreme, it's not good. If you are religious and your desires are extreme, you are a fanatic. If you are a politician and your desires are extreme for subjective reasons, you are into what they call abuse of power. So let us be mindful of who interprets patriotism, why you interpret patriotism, and where you interpret patriotism, and what for. You interpret patriotism for what? I am using open-ended questions here. Who, where, why, what, when? for a reason. Because patriotism itself is open-ended. It's not a dead end. Okay? So we have to dig deeper into our souls. We do hear people say soul searching. I would call it soul discovery. It is not searching. No. So if you discover your own self in your own soul, you know what you have taught. If you have knocked on a stone or you've touched some cotton, you know it yourself. Any person on earth who is honest and dishonest in anything they do and say, they know it. They know it. There is an old African proverb that says, anything hidden in the heart always radiates on the face. So that's it. Now, when we come to nationalism, you see, like I said, we have had folk songs, we have had cultural revolutions in parts of the world where people will compose songs, write books, and then inject it into the psyche of society. People will sing those songs and then attach patriotism to the personality cult of so-called leaders. This is why I say, I once wrote it, wherever you hear a freedom fighter, there is no freedom. Why would you fight for freedom if there is freedom? If you call a person a freedom fighter, the person should look back and say, well, then there is no freedom. That's it. So, nationalism and patriotism along the contours of time has always been hijacked and captured by blinded desires of one or a few for every subjective reason. Most of it is to entrench power or to expand a market or military force. So, when it comes to nationalism also, the two sometimes are confused. You know, the patriot, you used to hear people like Ernesto Che Guevara say patria o muerte. There is a reason why he used to say that. It's either for the people or death. But that feeling within the heart of an individual was stolen from Ernesto Che Guevara and others too, and then used in other parts of Africa when we were during the Cold War era. Proxy wars were happening. Some people hijacked the word patriotism, using that slogan itself, patria o muerte, when actually what you were doing is not patria o muerte. It is you, the individual, or muerte for the people who deny you. We have seen those kind of leaders in Africa who are standing up saying that they are patriots, they are Pan-Africans. When actually, for them, Pan-Africanism means dogma. It means domination. It means you don't follow them, they will kill you and bury you 6 feet deep. That is not Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is a soul, is a spirit, is tolerance, is discipline. You love the brother more than the brother loves himself. You love the sister more than the sister loves herself. That is Pan-Africanism. You can be a Pan-African without being a president. You can be a successful Pan-African without being any leader for that matter. But for those of us also in this generation who want to hijack that ID card thinking that it is theirs, be careful. Pan-Africanism is not a uniform. It is a soul. It is spirit. Announcing it. Having a swag around. Rolling around. Using it as a shot and walking around, receiving applauses does not make you a Pan-African brother or sister. No, it does not. You have to understand that this soul of a Pan-African, you will hear me, I'm very emotional at this point. This is how those who were blinded by desires eliminated Amilcar Cabral. This is how they eliminated Samora Machel. This is how they psychologically attempted to eliminate Madiba Mandela. This is how our African brothers hijacked the process from Osagyefo Nkrumah and then killed him psychologically. This is how Ahmed Sékou Touré was misunderstood. This is how people like our own Francis Edward Small were suppressed. This is how they eliminated the dear brother Patrice Emery Lumumba. Because we misunderstand patriotism and nationalism. We see it as a cross-pollination of verbiage. We see it as a cross-pollination of ideas, when actually that's not it. It is a soul and a spirit. That's what Pan-Africanism is all about. That's what patriotism is all about. That's what nationalism is all about. You cannot have nationalism without nationhood. You cannot have nationhood without sisterhood, brotherhood, parenthood, manhood, and womanhood. You cannot. Excuse me for acting like that. That is what Pan-Africanism is about. You see, my brothers and sisters, we have spoken a lot. So many speeches are stacked somewhere in Africa. A lot of people have spoken and written. If it is about speeches, I think Africa should keep quiet now. Is it about speeches only? No. It is about revisiting the speeches, reading them, rereading them, diagnosing them, understanding them, and spread them through sensitization after understanding it. We don't need new speeches. We don't need new images. We don't need new personality cult. We don't need people who will put on Mao suits and stand before us thinking that they are the doctors and the remedy of Africa. No, 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 no. Let's revisit the speeches. What brought OAU? What brought AU? What brought ECOWAS? What brought SADC? And other organizations within the continent. Because I'm not going to speak Gambia. I'm going to speak Africa. I'm going to speak humanity. We must stand at one point now to think and rethink. Are we really understanding what patriotism and nationalism are all about? It is between these two that Pan-Africanism was born. Or it is from Pan-Africanism that some people have spread out with these two. Nationalism, patriotism. They are victims of blinded desires from people who are what I call the victims of popularity, or the offshoots of popularity, or the petals of the tree of blood of popularity, but they are not offshoots stemming from productivity. I would rather go for the productive than the popular. Nobody or no being will be more popular than Shaitan. When we all wake up and repeat it 7 times as Muslims, and we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim, and nobody is more famous than Shaitan. So why? We should always remember one thing. You see, Africa cannot go further if we do not sit down and think and rethink what is the meaning and the purpose of those iconic images on our mosaic, on our horizon of perspective, aspirations, plans, and orientation. If you understand where Nkrumah started from and where he stopped, you can continue. If you understand where Amilcar Cabral began and where he stopped, you can continue. If you understand where Patrice Emery Lumumba began and where he stopped, you can continue. If you understand from where Madiba Mandela began and where he stopped, you can continue. But if you don't understand them, how can you continue? Because all of us want to be icons and fame-mongers. I am included. Most of us Africans, you hear them say, oh, this person is eloquent. I once had a friend who told me that. He said, Essa, you have eloquence and followers. I smiled. I told him that that is the fastest track that can take somebody to hell when you die. And it's also one of the fastest tracks that can take you to heaven. But it may not be a fast track. Because fast tracks don't take somebody to heaven, you know. You have to work for it. Within the context of Pan-Africanism, what is the price of a freedom fighter? It's freedom itself. Not badges, medals, recognition, escorts. When you are in the street, everybody will be running around. Look at him. That's the hero. That's the great guy. You are not the hero. You know who is hero? The angel of death. He has killed Alexander the Great, Caesar. He has killed Muammar Gaddafi and all other great leaders in the world. And the angel of death is still here. That's the hero. You know who is the hero? Within a given context, duty. Duty. Responsibility. Those are the heroes. Anything you do is your responsibility, is your duty, is through that duty that people see you to be different from others, and then they clap for you as a hero. But actually, you are not a hero. You are just a servant. Why should you be clapped for? Why should people identify you? And why should you feel that way, like it's an obligation that society owes you? Have you forgotten that if the society did not exist, you wouldn't be identified? A freedom fighter, you are fighting for freedom. Which freedom? For the trees? Those trees don't need your fight. The trees are free. We are the ones who are not free because we have minds and feelings. We feel things. But the trees do not know what you're fighting for. When you're fighting a war in the bush, you send your bullets, you bring the branches down. I wish the trees could speak. They will tell you, bro, why are you shooting at me? You, the human being, are the fighters, that you are not free because you have a mind and feelings. So we have to orientate that mind and feelings first. You see, in Africa, it is more about identity in most cases. Look at the great freedom fighter. Look at the Pan-African. Look at the great nationalist. And then you walk around quoting Ernesto Che Guevara and others. Patria o muerte. Quoting people like Patrice Lumumba. If you don't stop halfway on the road of committing the crimes, I'm not going to stop halfway of resisting the crime, and people will applaud. But when Patrice was saying that, are you feeling the soul of Patrice in yourself when you are saying it? You are not. When he was saying that, he was persecuted. He was eliminated. His flesh was soaked in acid so that people will not go on a pilgrimage for him. From 1960 to now, we have heard Belgium apologizing and then ready to compensate for what King Leopold did in Congo. That is a freedom fighter. Not because of he died. Some of them did not die. They lived until they died and were buried. Madiba. But when Madiba left the prison, he came. 4 years down the line, he said he's enough. I can bet if Madiba Mandela, with the euphoria that followed him out of the prison in the 90s, had he requested to be something like a supreme leader, the whole world would have accepted it for him. But no, Madiba said no. You have heard his story. When he was with his guards as a president, another guard came sitting near him, a white man, was trembling and shivering. He invited him to have lunch with him. After the man left, he told his guards, you know who is this guy? He was one of those people who were torturing me. That is a Pan-African. That is Madiba Mandela. He does not feed on revenge and avenge. He's above that. His soul and spirit is his discipline. Because you know why? He's teaching that guy that you used to judge us as savages. You used to judge us as people who are intolerant. We don't know what we do. But I am more civilized than you. Me, the black man, Nelson Madiba Mandela. After torturing me for 27 years, I found you in a restaurant as the president and invite you to eat with me. Nelson's soul and spirit is teaching the African that we should refuse what we are identified with, not by yelling, not by delivering speeches, not by strikes, but by behavior. That's why Martin Luther King Jr. said, judge not the person by the skin color, judge him by the contents of the character. The contents of a character is the patriot, the contents of the character is the nationalist. Thank you very much, my dear brothers and comrades. It's your brother Essa Bokar Sey.